Hello, and welcome to Toy and Stitches. Today I'm going to be showing you how to work the mattress stitch. I'm going to be showing you how to do it two ways. So I'm going to be showing you how to work into the tops of the stitches when you have a nice clean edge and you can clearly see where to put your stitches. And then I'm also going to go through how to work the mattress stitch along the edges if you need to seam the sides of your work together. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So let's get started. Okay, so before we start seaming, what you want to do is make sure you're setting yourself up for success. So the first thing you want to do before you seam, if you have any ends along where you're going to be seaming, make sure you weave those in because you don't want any loose tails getting in the way and getting tangled in your yarn as you're trying to work your seam. So that's one of the first things I'd say to do. The second thing is to make sure that you have the same side of the fabric facing you. So don't have like the right side and the wrong side facing you at the same time. Just make sure you have the same side of the fabric facing you. And then lastly, I would also say is stitch markers are also very helpful. If you have a very long seam, what you can do is just put your piece together and count out your stitches. Say, depending on the length of your seam, you can do 10, 20. Just make sure you're putting the stitch markers at the same interval just to hold the piece together so you kind of have a rough idea of how far along the seam you are and how many times you need to be sewing in between the stitch markers. And then it also helps so that the pieces don't start pulling away from each other and then you kind of get thrown off. So those are just a few tips that I have for when you're getting ready to start sewing, just so that once you're done, you don't look at the thing and then see that the seam is off and you have to rip the whole thing out and start again. So those are just a few things for you to do before you get started. So once you're done, you don't have to start over. So when you're ready to, when you have yourself all set up and you're ready to sew, you're going to want to get a piece of yarn. I'm using a contrast yarn just so you can see what I'm doing. And you want to measure it out and have it be about 3 times the length of your seam. So there would be 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't have to be exact. I like to leave a little extra at the end there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this yarn and you're going to put it onto your tapestry needle. You can either do it that way by just putting it over your needle, squeezing on it, and then shoving it in like so. But then I always find that I kind of pull on the yarn. I like these little things to help me to put the yarn on my needle. And it also makes it easier too. So you just do that, get the yarn on your needle. And then we're going to start working our mattress stitch. All right, so I like to start on the left side of my work, and I'm just going to take my tapestry needle and just place it from the inside of the stitch coming up toward me on the left side and pull that through. I'm going to leave a little tail. And then now I'm going to work into the stitch, the corresponding stitch on the right side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go from the inside of the stitch and then under the 2 loops and pulling it up toward me. And then what I like to do to secure it is I like to come down through the top of that left stitch and then back up into the one on the right. And that's just what I like to do to secure the end right there. And then now we're going to start working up. So now we're going to go back under the stitch on the left side, under the 2 loops, pulling it up towards us. And then doing the same thing on the right side. Just like so. And then you're just going to continue working back and forth, going through the stitch on the left, then through the stitch on the right. And I work a few stitches and then I'm going to pull on my yarn just to tighten the seam up. And when I do that, I like to keep my fingers together and just pinch the end and then just pull it just to tighten the seam up. And don't pull it until it bunches up because then now you've puckered it. So then just pull it down. You just want to pull it until the seam sits nicely together like so, but then you don't want to pull it so that it bunches up. And then that's just all you're going to do. Continue working up, going the same way we did before, under the one on the left, then under the stitch on the right, left, right, all the way up until you have completed your seam. And then once you've completed your seam, you can just weave in the end of your yarn, and then that seam is complete. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one out, and now I'm going to show you how to do the seam along the edge of your work. All right, so when it comes to working into the sides of your stitches, one of the most important things to remember is how many times to work into the side of each row. So right here, I have rows of double crochet. So in the side of each row, I'm going to be working into it twice. For single crochet and half double crochet, you would work into the side of the row once. For the double crochet, as I said, you'd work into the side of the row twice. And for treble crochet, you'd work into the side of each row 3 times. And this is also where using stitch markers can come in handy, because it's easier to get lost when you're working along the edges and not see where each row starts or ends. So it's just nice to put some stitch markers in there just to keep a track of where you are as you're going up your seam. But you work the stitch the same as we did when we were working into the tops of the stitches. You're going to start on the left, and you're just going to turn the work up just so you can see the sides of each stitches. And for myself, I like to work under 2 loops at a time, but you can work under 1, play around and just see what works best and how you like your seams to look. But for me, I'm going to be working under 2 loops. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull up 2 loops on the side of the first stitch on the left side. Like I did before, we're just going to pull that up, leave that tail, and then I'm going to grab the other side of my work and just go on the side and go under 2 loops and just pull it up. And I'm not going to fasten this one off because I'm going to show you what can happen if you don't kind of secure the end, just to be mindful. So now I'm going to work into this row again, just finding another 2 loops under here on that side. And then over here again, just finding 2 loops. So now I know I've sewn into 1 row, so now I'm going to move up a row. So for the next one, going in from the left, finding 2 loops to stick my tapestry needle under, pulling my yarn up, doing the same on the right side. I don't like to split my yarn. Some people like to split theirs. That's a personal preference. Just see what works for you. Under 2 loops here and under 2 loops over here. And then, so now I'm just going to pull on this, but I'm not going to hold on to the tail, and just watch what's going to happen to my tail as I pull if I don't hold on to it. You're going to start to pull it through. So if you don't secure it, just always remember that for the first few rows, hold on to the tail as you're tightening up your seam, or you're going to pull it right out and then you're going to have to start over. So just continue working like that, going under 2 loops on the side of each stitch of each row. This is double crochet, so I'm doing 2 loops at a time, 2 stitches into the side of each row as I go up. So every time I do 2 stitches, I know I've completed joining 1 row. So now I go up, and I'm going to do 1 here on this side, 1 on that side, 1 more over this side on the left, 1 more on the right. So now I've completed another row, and that's just the easiest way to continue working up your seam, so you can kind of keep track of where you are, how many rows you've worked into. But that's simply how you do the mattress stitch. It's really very easy. I find it to be the most secure seam, and once you use the same color yarn to put your seam together, you won't really see it. And that's pretty much how you work the mattress seam. So go ahead, grab yourself some swatches and just practice, because it gets better over time. If you did like this video, if If you found it helpful, hit that like button, share it with someone that you think could use it, and subscribe to the channel if you like videos like these. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and bye for now.